everybody, it's Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to join our Discord server, become patrons over on Patreon, and comment down below with your thoughts. So, something a lot of people mentioned in the video that we did about Miles replying to the commenter on Twitter who was like, "It was criticism, you idiot!" If you guys remember that. A lot of people, like, seem to have a gripe with RWBY not asking about the Silver Eyes and instead asking if Ozpin's cane was a relic. And I actually don't, like, I understand why people are kind of mad about this, but I actually had an idea that would fix this, I guess. And I don't think it's an original idea, like, people have probably thought of this before, but I want to kind of bring it into the quote-unquote mainstream, since you guys seem to care a lot. So here's my idea, right? In Volume 1, RWBY says that she wants to be a normal girl with normal knees. That is relatively the quote. And so my idea for why, you know, she's not asking about the Silver Eyes is something that is gonna sort of play a role in Volume 6, you know, like, Yang has sort of gone through her PTSD arc, and, like, all of the girls kind of have had a PTSD arc, like, obviously Yang's is a lot more
these motherfuckers
prevalent,
are not mentally unscathed.
But, like, it was Blake going through her trauma with Adam and, like, also saving the White Fang and learning not to run away from her problems, right? Yang, what Yang did was pretty obvious. I'm not going to explain that. Weiss, you know, overpowering and running away from her father, right? Like, it's all about, overcoming your fears, let's say. But RWBY never had something like that, and so my idea is in Volume 6, now that all the girls are together, her sort of fear is going to be revealed. Because she did have that moment with Ozpin, right? Or Oscar, rather, where she said, like, I'm scared, like, I'm terrified every day, you know, she said all that, right? And so, obviously, she's afraid, but I think that the root of the issue now is that part of the reason why she's afraid is because she isn't normal anymore. And so the idea being that, in a sense, her having silver eyes is not something that she wanted. She wanted to be a normal huntress, even though for us huntresses probably aren't that normal, right? But, like, in the world, it's normal, right? And so she wanted to be a normal huntress who was saving the world, and now she has this power she doesn't understand, and I think that we either do two things when we're confronted, like, with something like this. We either want to understand to make ourselves feel better, like, we want to, you know, it's almost like if you're, like, diving in a pool of water and you can't see what's at the bottom, and, like, you go down and touch the bottom because you gotta know that the bottom is there. You know what I mean? Or it's that you just don't jump into the water at all because you just don't want to know, right? And I think RWBY is sort of doing that she is not asking about the Silver Eyes on purpose, because not only is she sort of afraid of herself, because she's seen, you know, what somebody can do with maiden powers, which are obviously, like, given sort of from the same source, right? Like, it's all magic, quote-unquote. So she's seen what, say, magic can do to people like Pyrrha, right? With, you know, Cinder using the maiden powers on her. Like, I don't think she wants to know what her magic can do, because in her mind, I think that she thinks to some extent magic is a bad force now. You know what I mean? Like, she's only ever seen somebody with magic be evil, other than Ozpin, and Ozpin hasn't really displayed magical abilities in front of them yet.
Other than the whole reincarnation business.
Other than that, but, like, that isn't in front of their eyes. He just kind of showed up that way. You know what I mean? Like, Yang and Weiss seeing Raven turn into a bird is a display of magic. Ozpin being reincarnated is, like, it happened off screen, you know what I'm saying, right? And so RWBY hasn't really seen a good person with that transformation, and she didn't even know, like, Crow could have turned into a bird until Volume 4, right? And I don't think that she's seen it, even after he never even said that, so Volume 5 more so, right? Because I think that's when they found out about it, am I correct?
Yeah.
Because remember that, Crow was like, there's something else I should tell you, and then you saw Raven up in the tree, and he was like, never mind. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't mention that for whatever reason. But then in Volume 5, I swear that Yang brought it up with Ozpin.
But maybe they were also, because he saw Raven, so maybe it was just
maybe
like,
it's,
by the way, Ozpin fucked me over, now I'm a bird. Although it must be more than a bird, right? Because just being a bird's kind of cool. Like, I'm alright with that. Right?
And so, like, she barely, let's say she barely knows about Crow being magical. You know what I mean? So the only person that she really has sort of, for, like, an example is Cinder, and so I feel like that scares her, is this, like, magic that she doesn't understand, and instead of diving in to understand it like Yang does, because Yang is somebody who I would say dove into the pool, touched the bottom, and came back up victorious almost, right? She, like, went balls deep with the relic, you know what I mean? That's one way to put it, right?
Well, I just got some, like, really unfortunate RWBY art that I saw last night on Tumblr, and... That's what that was infected and balls. Anyways, please continue.
But RWBY is somebody that she's too scared to kind of look into it. You understand what I mean? Like, she's too afraid to investigate any further, and she doesn't want to. Right? And so I think that that is sort of you guys' answer, is that we're gonna get this idea where, you know, Yang or somebody, Yang or Weiss, you know, probably Weiss, because Weiss was there. Weiss will be like, hey, like, do you understand what happened at Beacon yet? And RWBY will be like, I don't want to know. Like, I wanted to be normal, and now I can't be normal anymore. And
there's a dragon on top of my high school that was turned to stone because I looked at it when I was sad.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is a scary thought, you know? And she doesn't, like... What if she says, like, look what it did to Cinder, I can't let that happen to you guys. And Weiss is like, but the only way to make sure Cinder, it doesn't... Right? Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, the idea is, like, the only way to make sure that doesn't happen, RWBY, is if you understand it. Like, I feel like that is sort of gonna be the drive of Volume 6, if that makes sense. Like, it's supposed to be this idea, like, RWBY's like, I don't want to hurt you guys, and so I don't want to use the powers, and she says, okay, like, Weiss, but the only way that you can make sure that you don't hurt any of us is if you understand them and don't use it accidentally. And Weiss can relate to this because of her scene where she where she summons the boar, right? Because of a heightened emotional state, right? She summons it and it attacks that girl. Like, Weiss is prime example of someone who needs to learn their skill and sort of control their emotions while learning their skill to make sure that they don't kill someone, right? And so I feel like Weiss can sort of understand that, and she, you know, did tell that story at the party, right? She did mention that, I'm pretty sure. She was just like, yep, right in the middle of the party. I think that was the exact line, right? So it's obvious that RWBY knows about that now, because, you know, they were all together, they were all there. So I feel like that is another thing, too, is that could be a really nice scene between Weiss and RWBY, is that, you know, Weiss is sort of like, okay, but when I summoned that boar, like, I did it because I was upset and I didn't understand how to use, like, my powers yet, but now I can summon, you know, at my will. You need to be able to do the same thing with the Silver Eyes, and so you need to go talk to Oscar or Ozpin before, you know, before it's too late, sort of thing. Like, not to be over dramatic, but before it's too late, right? And I think that could be, like, I think that would really improve her character, and I think that's what they're gonna do. So I get that you guys are like, but why didn't she ask? That could be, I think that's a perfectly understandable reason, and I think when that happens, or if that happens, people will be like, oh, like, that's interesting, you know, because I think that's an interesting way to go with her character, you know what I mean? To have her sort of be, like, we see her finally, like, this is her flaw, is that she is also... She thinks that she can sort of ignore things and they'll go away, whereas Blake runs away, Yang takes things too directly, Weiss, I can't necessarily think of hers right now, but with RWBY, it's a freeze. You know what I mean? And maybe with Weiss, it's that she laughs it off and pretends that it doesn't bother her. I was reading something today, and it was that people have more than 2 responses. So you have fight, flight, right? So Yang is the fight, Blake is the flight, but you also have
freeze. And
freeze.
Is there an ice pun to be made about Weiss here?
No.
Or?
RWBY is the freeze. She is the freezing one. Like freezing and ignore, right? So when Weiss is confronted with something, there's 2 more. So basically, one of them is sleep, which, okay, you guys may, like, find that funny, but we'll talk about that in a second. So one of them is sleep, and the other one is quote-unquote have fun. So have you ever been in a situation where you laughed even though you were upset? Like, just I've done that a couple times, like, a lot. Like, I'll just randomly start laughing, and Hunter's like, are you okay? No. So Weiss is sort of the one that is sort of, like, pretending stuff doesn't bother her, and kind of, I don't want to say laughs it off, because I don't think she's actually laughed it off, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, she's the one who's like, oh, that didn't bother me. You know, she's pretending. Whereas RWBY is sort of either, like, a freeze, or she is a... she sort of, RWBY is the fall asleep. Basically, like, the idea is that people go to sleep so they don't need to deal with their problems. That's ignoring. Like, that is, like, the most ignoring you can get is to be out of your own consciousness, right? And so RWBY is the ignore of the team. And so we have to establish and deal with that ignore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, like, Weiss just ignores in a different way. She says that she's fine when she's not. Right? But RWBY ignores by, like, RWBY is basically sleeping, like, in this analogy, you know what I mean? Or using these, 4 different stages of responses. Also, I don't remember where I saw this. It may not even be true. I could try to find the article again, but I just thought that it was interesting. But yeah. I'm not a doctor. I'm not gonna tell y'all what to do. But anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to join our Discord server, become patrons over on Patreon, and, I guess tell me, like, if this idea would make things better for you, I suppose? Like, if this would be a justifying reason, I suppose, for why RWBY hasn't asked yet. And I think that it is. I think that it is that's a good reason in my mind. Like, that's maybe one of the only reasons, but that's a good reason, and I feel like people will chill if that's the reason, and they do it well. Because I think that they can do it well. Whether they will or not, that remains to be seen. But I do think that it is a good alternative, and it kind of solves that plot hole, so to speak, because you can just say, you know, she didn't want to ask because she was afraid, and you have this emotional development that surpasses anything that RWBY has ever gotten. It seems like a good idea. Anyway, we will see y'all later. Bye, guys!